Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. We will get started in just a moment.
This is a fascinating conversation. Joining us now is a guy who knows real estate from the bottom up. Investor, made millions of dollars understanding market trends. Tens of thousands of people tune to him to find out what he has to say. His latest expertise, he's bottled this pandemic investing. It's actually, I think, called pandemic investment. We welcome Jason Hartman. By the way, just to be completely honest, I've kind of become a fan. I've been watching his videos, seeing what he has to say, even listen to his podcast a little bit. I want to tackle two things with you, Jason. First is there a looming crisis? Number two, what will be the big trend that comes out of this? Let's start with the crisis first.
Rick, great question. It's good to be here. And the circumstances, in some ways, are very dire. And the question when it comes to real estate is what type of real estate and where. There are three basic types of real estate markets in the entire world: linear, cyclical, and hybrid markets. The cyclical markets, meaning the expensive markets around the country, South Florida, close to where I live, the West Coast of the United States, the expensive Northeastern markets, they are in for trouble, especially if they are high density markets, because I predict, Rick, that there will be a mass migration away from high density markets to low density suburban markets. I think we are going to see a major rise, a resurgence in suburban living.
And I guess, if I can fill in the rest of the enthymime here, two reasons. A, people can work from home because they don't want to be in elevators surrounded by other people.
Right.
And B, the new technology allows it to happen.
Right. And the interesting thing about that, Rick, is that the technology isn't that new. We've been able to do this for quite a while, as you know. But now everybody's been forced to use Skype and Zoom and GoToMeeting and all these tools. A crisis always pushes people. Necessity is the mother of invention, right? And now many more people, have been forced to work from home, and they realize they can do it. So the home is becoming the center of the universe, as it should be. The city is not as necessary as it used to be.
I was listening to your podcast over the weekend as I was driving from DC to Baltimore, and you were the most interesting thing to listen to at the time. And you kept saying
Well, thank you.
You kept saying something which was interesting. Well, there's no more sports. You kept saying, stay calm. The most important thing is stay calm. And yet, the things that you and I are talking about are not the kind of things that make people stay calm. How do you balance those two?
That's a great question. There are a lot of people suffering. This too will pass.
But will I lose my house? Will I lose my investments? Will I ever work again? These are the things people are thinking about. Maybe not you and I, but some of the folks watching us, Jace.
Understood. Unfortunately, we are galloping towards socialism. We are galloping toward a more centralized control of our lives. The government, the Federal Reserve are coming to the rescue. They have been bold. Unbelievably bold in the amount of money they're pumping into the system. There will be more. This is an absolutely historic time.
Helicopter money.
Truly incredible what's happening. Helicopter money.
Helicopter money. It just keeps coming, and nobody knows where it's like magical money, right?
Yep. It's hey, listen, when you have the reserve currency of the world and the biggest military in the world to make sure you keep it that way, you can pretty much do what you want. And I know everybody says the dollar will collapse and so forth. Right now, the dollar has gained a lot of strength because everybody around the world is sucking up dollars in order to fulfill obligations and to buy commodities like gold. We are in uncharted territory. It's a very interesting time.
So it's almost like we're in a butt kicking contest and everybody else is out of two legs, but at least we still have one, right?
Yeah, good point. It's not that I agree philosophically with any of the stuff that's going on, as I didn't during the last crisis. But the U.S. is the cleanest dirty shirt in the laundry, as the saying goes.
Well said. You're a great guest, Jason. Thanks so much. We appreciate having you on.
My name is Jeremy. I'm a big supporter of Jason Hartman and grateful to Jason for a lot of what I've learned over the last 4 years. I can attest to him. We've had some good success using the strategies, being a little more conservative on some of the decisions. So we've purchased a couple of properties through the Creating Wealth Network, through Jason's network. I've done some new construction stuff on the side as well, and just really feel like I owe a lot to Jason and the team for the education part, and sometimes the motivation too to just go ahead and jump in and get active and do things. You learn a lot more by doing than by learning by podcast or any other way. I've attended several seminars and I've enjoyed all of those. Attended the mastermind group once and really enjoyed that as well. Big supporter, grateful to Jason again. Thanks.
We've been listening to Jason's podcast for a couple years now, and the main reason we came is to determine which market we want to buy next. It's been really helpful to talk to some of the various people in different areas, to network. We've learned some good information about taxes and loans, and I definitely recommend it and would for sure come back.
Hi, my name is Hayato Nagishi. I'm from New York City, and it's been a great seminar, been a great 2 days. What I've learned over here that I did not know about are land contracts. I know about traditional income, cash flow, property investing, but land contracts are something totally new, and I wanted to thank Jason and his team for bringing it to the table here, and hopefully I can have other alternative options to invest. Thank you.
Well, I'm a longtime listener to the podcast, of course, and I like the approach to the business. I love the website that Jason Hartman has, and we're definitely looking to extend our real estate education. Of course, that's my main piece, and we're looking to invest in properties, start taking action, and get some properties working for my post-federal government career. Just in general, looking at the talking to the fellow investors here and talking to Jason, a lot of what Jason has talked about, I've heard on his own podcast or whatever. But I think it's fascinating. I'm furiously scribbling notes in my notebook as the days go on here. I listen. Want to learn lessons. I want to learn how to avoid the pain of the mistakes in real estate, and the ways that you can invest and make a good long-term income.
Today, we talked about commandment number 3 last time, thou shalt maintain control, be a direct investor. We talked about the importance of that. Today, let's go on and let's talk about commandment number 4, okay? Now, commandment number 4 is something that's kind of affiliated with the crooks on Wall Street, right? So I always say Wall Street is the modern version of organized crime, but they do have some very good things. There's some obviously extremely brilliant people on Wall Street, the quants, right? The people that really, really know their stuff. Literally rocket scientists, okay? If you saw the movie Margin Call, which is a great movie, by the way, the guy says, he was being asked by one of his superiors, he says, hey kid, this brilliant kid is in there analyzing the financial pools and all this kind of stuff. And he says, hey, what's your major? What's your background? And he says, well, I went to college to be a rocket scientist. Quite literally, but you end up on Wall Street because that's where the money is, right? And so we see all of this kind of stuff, right? But one of the things Wall Street does pretty well is they utilize the art and science of financial planning. Now, financial planning in and of itself is a fantastic art and science, right? When you invest in something, before you get started as an investor, or if you're already moving along, maybe you want to just take a step back and look at the big picture, right? Look at the big picture. And in doing that, when it comes to financial planning, you need to consider your investment goals, your risk tolerance. There are some people that are very risk averse, very conservative, right? They want to just preserve. And that person might want to diversify more. There's an old saying, diversification perpetuates wealth and concentration creates wealth, right? So it depends what phase of your life you're in. If you've already made your money and maybe you're a little older, you want to just preserve and perpetuate. But if you're younger and you haven't made your money yet, maybe you got to take some bigger risk and you want to concentrate. There are 2 old sayings that come to mind in this vein. One is the one we've all heard. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Well, there's another saying, and I believe it was Andrew Carnegie who said this. He said, and I don't think, by the way, either of these are right or wrong. I just think they should both be considered, and it depends on the situation, right? But Andrew Carnegie, I think it was, who said, put all your eggs in one basket and watch that basket, okay? So concentration. Now, with income property, the most historically proven asset class in the entire world, we can have the best of both worlds. We can put all our eggs in the one basket of the income property asset class, but we can diversify geographically, because there's an old saying in real estate, all real estate is local. And we'll talk about this on a future video because that's actually another commandment. Okay, so we'll get to that. But financial planning techniques. So understand your risk tolerance, understand your time horizon, understand your investment goals, right? Are you investing for cash flow, income, capital appreciation, asset protection, diversification, back to the other thing? What is the point? What is the goal of your investment, right? If you are a cash flow investor, you will naturally be a more conservative investor, right? This is in the stock market comparison, this would be a dividend investor versus a capital appreciation investor that invests in the type of real estate market that is likely to appreciate. And I think that's pretty much being a gambler, okay? I don't think that's being an investor. That's a speculation move, right? And we'll talk about on a future video the 3 types of real estate markets: linear, cyclical, and hybrid. And depending on your risk tolerance and what you've discovered from thinking about financial planning, we will talk about what type of market you want to invest in. So we'll get to that on a future video. And thank you for joining me today. What do you think about this? Go to jasonhartman.com/ask or leave a comment below. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next video. Until then, happy investing.
Welcome to the Creating Wealth Show with Jason Hartman. You're about to learn a new slant on investing, some exciting techniques, and fresh new approaches to the world's most historically proven asset class that will enable you to create more wealth and freedom than you ever thought possible. Jason is a genuine self-made multimillionaire who's actually been there and done it. He's a successful investor, lender, developer, and entrepreneur who's owned properties in 11 states, had hundreds of tenants, and been involved in thousands of real estate transactions. This program will help you follow in Jason's footsteps on the road to your financial independence day. You really can do it. And now, here's your host, Jason Hartman, with the complete solution for real estate investors.
Hey, everybody. Good morning to all. It's almost Thanksgiving, and this is going to be the weirdest Thanksgiving year ever, maybe, right? It's, all things considered, we all still have a lot to be grateful for, don't we? Even with the restrictions and the world we live in that is, I'm dubbing this world we live in, I'm going to call this a dictator's dream. It is a tyrant's dream what is going on now. If there are a lot of dictatorial tyrants out there, this is their time to shine, isn't it? They are restricting our freedoms. They are closing down our businesses. They are destroying our health, weakening our immune systems, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. It is really, really quite a time we're living in. But all things considered, people investing in real estate are making fortunes right now. I hope you're one of them. If you're not one of them, I'm here to help you be one of them. And if you've invested in income property before, let's see if we can turn up the volume on that. Turn up the volume and create more income. Cha-ching. Yeah, cha-ching, right? Okay, so what do we have today? Well, I promised you last week we would cover my investment matrix. And we're definitely going to do that today. This is something that, I presented this originally way back, I think in 2011 was the first time at our live Meet the Masters of Income Property conference in Irvine, California, way back in 2011. Might have even been earlier, but I don't know. We used the same venue in Irvine for many, many years to do that event, and that was the Hyatt Regency Irvine, which is now called Hotel Irvine. And so, one way I'm sure your memory works the same way mine does, at least most of the time. But one way I really remember things is by where I was located when it happened, right? That is a good memory association tool, is to go by location, by your visual environment, right? And I know I presented this in Irvine at that Hyatt Regency Irvine. But since we held the event there many times for many years and we held other events there, it's a little foggy as to what year it was. But I think it was back in 2011, maybe it was 2009 or 10. But whatever it was, this is something that I really haven't presented enough, talked about enough. And so I wanted to bring it back today because I think it's really telling. And we'll talk about the three basic economic maladies: inflation, deflation, and stagflation. Okay. Stagflation being, well, I don't know. What do you think is the best or the worst of those things? What do you think the worst economic malady is? Comment below and tell me, is it inflation, deflation, or stagflation? Also, if you don't have an opinion on that, no need. Comment below with your location because we talked about location a moment ago. Tell us where you're watching from. And, for the podcast, we have listeners in 189 countries worldwide, 189 countries. Truly amazing. So tell us where you're located. And, we have people coming on listening from Australia and Europe and Asia on these live streams, and the Middle East, and just all over the world. It's really, really cool to see that. So many people are interested from all over the world. So, is it good morning? Is it good afternoon? Is it good evening? Right? Everybody's in different time zones. So that's really cool. Anyway, in either case, thanks for joining us today. We've got, let's see who we have here. We've got David asking, do you believe we will be inflationary or deflationary? Or he said it the other way, but I read it the opposite way. Anyway, we're going to talk about that today. And what kind of market is Tampa, Florida? Tampa is a hybrid market. The choices are linear, cyclical, and hybrid. Those are the three types, as I've outlined and been talking about that for 16 years now. And I would say that Tampa was a linear market, but it has now become a hybrid market. So formerly linear, now somewhat hybridish. So Tampa has moved on the needle, on the scale. It's moved a bit. Okay. And Goslings is in New York, I guess, right? Are you in New York? And good morning to you too. Juan says good morning. Good morning, Jason. This is in Seattle from Minneapolis. Just got a refinance on their primary residence for 2.99%. Hey, congratulations. Wow, that is totally awesome. That is totally awesome. Amazing. We have negative interest rates, folks. You are getting paid to borrow money. Paid to borrow money. Absolutely incredible. Thank you, rich Uncle Jerome Powell. By the way, I'm not endorsing this environment we're in. This is a ridiculous environment. Interest rates are way too low. They should not be this low. This is artificial. It's a scam. It's a scheme, whatever. But hey, take advantage of it. If the low rates are out there, you might as well take advantage of it. And congratulations. And SCSU 300 is going on to say 3.65% on my first Hartman property, and just got a job as a mortgage loan officer. Thank you. Oh, hey, well, congratulations. You will not find any shortage of business being in the mortgage business today. So that's good. Brett says, please turn up the sound, turn up the volume. I think that was keyword. That was only at the first moment, I believe. So I hope that was, well, Lou also says volume is low. When I do that, when I do test the volume, and I can hear it definitely on both Facebook channels and YouTube. I can hear it myself. So I think it might be on your devices. I don't know. For a moment when we start, the volume may be a little low until I adjust it. Okay. So just understand that. But hopefully you can hear me just fine now. You should be able to. All right. So let me just test that myself. You can hear me. Look, I'm hearing myself. All right. So let me just test that myself. There. See? I'm listening just like you on YouTube and on Facebook. I've got one device listening on each channel. So you should be able to hear me okay, folks. All right. Um, Let's see. Okay, so Ian says, "Good morning, greetings from Melbourne, Florida. Hey, you're not too far from me. With a Northern California representative as co-pilot. Okay, sounds good. I own a few Jason Hartman properties in Ohio. This is Gosling says." Um, Currently at 5.25, looking to refi. Any recommendations on a lender that covers that area? Oh, yeah, absolutely. We have several lenders we can help you with. And by the way, I have to tell you, it's been a struggle to get good lenders that have time that will pay attention to your loan application and get it processed quickly. The market is so impacted and overwhelmed right now that has definitely been a struggle. But reach out to us. Just go to jasonhartman.com. You can fill out any web form there. Sounds like you have an investment counselor already, Goslings. Or Gosling's Nest. I don't know your names. What is your name here? Anyway, reach out to your investment counselor because you've purchased properties through our network, so they'll help you, or just go to jasonhartman.com. We'll be happy to help you. Okay, and Peter Yim is in Irvine, California. I was just talking about Irvine, a master plan community. I remember when I moved to Irvine back in the 80s, and I just thought that was paradise. I thought that was like, what an amazing environment. I'd never really seen a master plan community like that before. It was one of the first in the world back in the late 60s and early 70s. In the early 70s, when they started developing the Woodbridge area of Irvine, I mean, people from all over the world, urban planners from Singapore and just everywhere in the world, flew to Irvine to see what they were doing. It was such a revolutionary idea. Now there are lots of master plan communities, so it's not that big a deal anymore. But at the time, Irvine was the groundbreaking community. It really was. So greetings. Fernando from oh no, Peter in Irvine, Fernando in Utah, and Jay is in New York and Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. I don't know. It sounds like you got two people listening in different places. Okay, Wookie World says it seems like some of the new construction providers tie you in a 2-year contract with property management. Yeah, don't agree to that, by the way. Hey, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Wookie World. Um, by the way, is Wookie from Star Wars? Is that what that's from? I think that's from Star Wars. You know, I remember when I was a kid and I saw the first Star Wars and I thought it was so cool. But I saw one of the other Star Wars and I don't know. I think it's more for kids than adults. Now, Star Trek, I like. That's more interesting than Star Wars to me. But hey, that's just me. Uh, Not that a lot of people don't love that stuff. So whatever. That's just me. All right. So um, we are doing a special thing in our Empowered Investor Inner Circle. And we have not offered that to the broader public, by the way. And I keep saying we're gonna get a little webinar together. We're gonna offer the Empowered Investor Inner Circle to everybody in our audience. But I'll tell you something. I'll give you a little sneak peek. Okay. If you're just interested and you want to sign up, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you a secret right now. But let me just make sure I got the webpage right. Okay. This is a secret. Let me just give me a moment here. I got to type this in. Okay. Yes, I do. I have it. Okay. So if you go to empoweredrei.com, that is a secret URL. I have never mentioned it publicly. And I probably shouldn't now because you're not going to see a proper presentation of it. But that is the page where you can sign up for the Empowered Investor Inner Circle, which is a social network for empowered investors. And we have monthly coaching calls as part of that. And one of the, here, I'll just move that over right here. Oh, wait, I can't do that with this. Nah, I'll get it to you later. But empoweredrei.com. And our next call on the 30th of November, so that is in just 8 days from today, is about deconstructing and disassembling and tearing apart property management agreements, the good, the bad, and the ridiculous. Because some of the terms in these property management agreements are absolutely ridiculous. Do not agree to them. We're going to help you fight back and take control and not get ripped off by your property manager, because there's a lot of scumbags out there, folks. It is a world of people on the take, and you need to be protected from them. Yep. We got a lot of people on the take, a lot of desperate people out there trying to rip people off. And we're going to help you make sure you do not get ripped off, that you get a fair deal. And we also, by the way, the Empowered Investor Inner Circle is got a big focus on self-management. So if you want to self-manage your properties long distance and you want to know how to do that, we are here to help you with that, because that's what being an empowered investor is all about. It's about having choices. It's about not being controlled by somebody else. It's about being in control. Commandment number 3 in my 10 commandments of successful investing: thou shalt maintain control. Thou shalt maintain control. Okay, let's get into it, folks. By the way, keep your comments coming and tell me where you're located and so forth. I'll get to more of those in a moment, but I want to get into some of our content today. Of course, you can reach out to us through jasonhartman.com, 1-800-HARTMAN, and be sure to gotta make the lawyers happy, folks. Be sure to check out our terms of service and privacy policy at jasonhartman.com. If you have trouble sleeping, read that stuff, because it is the cure for insomnia. Yes, that is the cure for insomnia, unless you're an attorney, and then you probably love it, right? You love it. Hey, I got to tell you, every week we run the Creating Wealth Show, our podcast that's been running for 16 years now. We run 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And every Friday we do Flashback Friday. And we had a famous person on the show a couple of years ago. We did a flashback of her. That is Sidney Powell. That's Donald Trump's lawyer. And you've definitely heard her name in the news. I interviewed her back in October of 2014. And so we republished that as a Flashback Friday episode. And it's pretty interesting to get that perspective. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. I'm always talking about how you must listen to old music, you must read old books, you must look at old magazines, old newspapers, watch old movies, watch old TV shows. Folks, that is so critically important. In fact, that might be some of the best advice you're going to get here today. Now, we're going to tell you how to make money for sure. But I am amazed at how many people, well, aren't you amazed at a lot of things? Number one thing I'm amazed about is how many adults, or no, wrong. I said that wrong. Scratch that. How many children are walking around in adult bodies? Aren't you amazed by this? Is the world becoming just less and less mature? Is this a symptom of this entitlement society in which we live? Is this a symptom of the fact that we live in this like instant gratification world? I think that leads to immaturity. And when I talk about maturity, I'm talking about the idea of what's many things, of course, but being able to think critically, critical thinking skills, and the idea of putting in an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. That concept, right? That old-fashioned concept, instead of instant gratification mentality, which is the world owes me a living, right? I'll put in this half-assed effort and I expect full pay. I expect everybody to take care of me and the government to take care of me and all this kind of stuff, right? It is it's a ridiculous time in which we live, isn't it? But enough said on that. Okay, let's talk about some housing news. And Here is yet another way to be fooled, misled, and you can make a lot of wrong decisions with the misinformation out there in the media. In the mainstream media, uh, they don't know what they're talking about, folks. So look at this information on housing prices. All right. So it says national home prices have increased by 47% since 2012, but wages have only increased by 16%. That's not good news. Now, the uninformed person out there, the person who doesn't know how to think critically, who doesn't ask themselves the Jason Hartman question. And by the way, I did not make that up. You guys did. My listeners made that up. They called it the Jason Hartman question. And hey, I'm going to take the credit because I like this question. So the Jason Hartman question is compared to what? Compared to what? See, this would mislead you. This type of thing that says home prices have increased by 47% since 2012, but wages have only increased by 16%. This would lead you to believe that we are in a bubble that is going to pop. Pop. Do we have a sound effect of a bubble popping? Hey, we need that. We need a bubble popping sound effect. We don't have that. Oh, well, sorry. You're probably thinking that's great because Jason, you're overdoing it on the sound effects. Okay, maybe. If I had someone here with me to, chat up the show a little bit, I wouldn't rely as much on the sound effects. But since I'm doing the solo, we will. So this would lead you to believe that there's a bubble that's going to pop because, hey, housing prices are going up much faster than income. And that means that nobody can afford a house and the market is going to collapse and it's going to be just a tragedy and a disaster. And I'm going to wait. I'm going to keep my powder dry, as the old saying goes. Keep my powder dry, and I'm not going to use my cash. Powder is cash in that example, if you don't know the metaphor. Going to keep my powder dry, and I'm going to wait until the housing price collapse. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to buy up everything for 70 cents on the dollar. I'm going to get a 30% discount. I don't know why I'm talking like a redneck or a hillbilly there. I'm not sure. Oh, maybe we need less coffee or more coffee. What do you think? Well, there's another sip in here, so I think I'll have it. Okay. So they talk about housing prices, but they don't talk about housing payments. And payments are the most important thing, not prices. Payments, not prices. Because very few people buy based on a price. Almost everybody buys based on a payment. And the payments have actually gotten cheaper. And houses are less expensive on a principal and interest mortgage payment basis than they were in 2006. Right now, 14 years later, the house has gotten cheaper. Yep, on a monthly payment, mortgage payment basis. Now, property taxes are higher because property taxes are based on the sales price. And insurance has gotten more expensive over the years. But the principal and interest, the PI, not the TI, PITI, principal and interest, taxes and insurance, the P and the I, the biggest parts of that payment are cheaper than they were before. Okay? So this is very misleading. It is wrong. Don't be influenced by that. You must think it through, think critically, and understand the details. Now, this is interesting also. This is Lawrence Yoon, the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors. I had him on the show before. We got to get him back because it's been a while since Lawrence has been on. And he's generally thought of, and he gets some flack out there in the media because everybody says he's just promoting the housing market. Rah, rah, rah. You know, the realtors are always promoting the housing market and they say everything's great and everything's fine and it's going to go up more and more. Well, not this time. This is a pretty interesting comment from this guy who has a lot of information. National Association of Realtors is one of, if not the largest trade lobbying organization on planet Earth. It's a big group of about 1.5 million members, give or take. Hey, what's a couple 100,000 here or there? So when Lawrence Yoon comes out and says something like this, uh, it's cause for paying a little bit of attention to it. But still, I don't think this says there's a bubble. I think we are still relatively far from a bubble, because payments are so cheap. Houses are so cheap, 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 cheap. Okay. Anyway, Lawrence Yoon says, and this is the article from Housing Wire, NAR, National Association of Realtor, NAR's Yoon says median home prices are rising, quote, much too fast, unquote. Wow. You wouldn't expect that to come from Lawrence Yoon. He's usually the rah rah guy, right? Rah rah rah. Housing prices are going up. Bye bye bye. You know, no, he's this is interesting. Home prices rose in all 181 metro areas tracked by NAR during Q3. All of them, every single market, housing prices rose. In the US, median existing single family home prices. Now remember, that's different than new home prices. This is existing homes. You always gotta ask, what are they talking about, right? These things are sliced and diced 1,000 different ways. Okay. This is the median price, meaning the middle. It's not the average price, which is adding them all up and dividing by the number, right? So if you were looking at the average price, you'd take 181 metros, and then you'd take the price now compared to what the price used to be in all those areas. You'd add them all up and then divide by 181 to get the average, right? Obviously, you're smart people, you know how to calculate the average, but the median is just the middle. Okay. So this is the median price, and it's of existing single family homes. So it's not talking about apartments or condos. It's existing single family. All right. So those prices rose 12%. Wow. 12% year over year to $315,500, NAR said. In 117 of those 181 metros, there were double-digit price gains from 1 year ago. For added perspective, in Q2, only 15 metros had double-digit price gains. Now, remember, in Q2, we were all quarantined, locked down, imprisoned, as the dictators who run the economy were trying and succeeding in destroying every small business out there so they could consolidate power in a few big businesses that have a lot of lobbyists that the government can exchange power with. And it's much easier to just control a few big companies than a bunch of small ones, right? Bunch of small, it's too fragmented, right? Okay, so by the end of Q3, 1.47 million existing homes were available for sale, which is 19.2% lower inventory at the end of Q3 last year. So inventory is down, sales pace is increasing, prices are going up, according to NAR's Lawrence Yoon, the chief economist, much too fast. Okay, that's what he says. But I still don't think it's too much cause for concern. Okay, we're going to get to the investment property matrix. Oh, wait a sec. Wait, not yet. Okay, so anyway, we'll get to the investment property matrix, but I thought you'd get a laugh out of this. JP Sears is a great guy. You probably watch his videos. He's awesome. And I got to share the stage with him once at Ryan Moran's event. We were both presenting there. And I got some good pictures of him backstage kissing my dog. He's a dog lover. But anyway, this is pretty funny. So check this out.
Hey, what's up, man?
Just got my COVID test results.
Oh, how'd you do?
Came back positive for gluten intolerance.
Oh, man, that's worse than COVID.
Way worse. A lot of people have it. I just wish the economy was open so we could close it down because of it.
Have you told your parents?
No way, man. I could never come out to them. They're so old-fashioned. They still eat bread. It's hard enough to tell them when I had COVID.
You had COVID? When?
Yesterday.
Are you still contagious?
No.
Oh, when'd you stop being contagious?
Tomorrow.
Oh, I'm going to Portland tomorrow.
What are you doing up there?
Rioting and looting.
Nice. For what?
Oh, just the sport of it. You know, exercise.
Sounds peaceful.
Yeah, we're really taking a stand against people who take a stand.
Against people who take a stand for anything specific?
Yeah. Anything specific.
Sounds progressive.
AOC, baby.
With you there, man. If it's okay to call you that.
Hey, have you been following the election?
Very closely.
Do you think there was really voter fraud?
Oh, yeah.
What makes you so sure?
I committed a lot of it.
That sounds like a lot
of honest votes for Biden. Yeah, they were.
Hey, what do you think about the COVID vaccine coming out?
It's a miracle.
I know, and only 2 days after the Associated Press elected Biden into office.
I think we should credit all of it to Biden.
It's like he personally created it.
The man's a genius.
Are you going to get one?
Oh, yeah. Are you?
Only if it's not mandatory.
It'll be a vintage top shelf injection.
But is it tested yet?
But for me,
It'll be common courtesy to get 1 or 7 of them.
yeah, you're a leper if you don't get one. Hey, are you into tracking?
Oh, yeah, I love being tracked.
Are you microchipped?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of DIY microchipping. I didn't want to wait for the mandatory ones, so I just looked up some YouTube tutorials.
Nanotechnology?
Oh, no. It's actually a 3-inch floppy disk implanted in my lower back right underneath the skin. It's the best technology I could afford.
Nice.
Yeah, I call it my track stamp.
You must feel so safe.
Yeah, it's like I'm an infant, and my mom is always watching me on the baby monitor, but instead of my mom, it's the United States government. So it's even more safe.
You're so free.
Hey, what do you think about Biden's mask mandate idea?
I believe everything they tell him to say to me.
How long do you think he'll live, though?
Well, I hear we're supposed to have a very mild springtime next year. I don't know if he can make it through something like that.
So do you think the Biden administration will be good for our country?
Yes, but I think how he got elected will be even better for it.
Oh, what is that?
Just a hunch. Kamala Harris, though, right?
Oh, she loves when people are in prison.
She has pronouns in her Twitter bio.
So why wouldn't I believe everything she says?
Do you remember on April 2nd, 2019, when she said she believes the women who accused Biden of sexual misconduct?
I don't believe anything she says.
Me either.
But Trump has 26 allegations, and Biden only has 8. And 26 minus 8 is 18, which technically means that Biden has negative 18 allegations, which means that Biden has saved 18 people's lives.
Where would women be without him?
Absolutely nowhere.
Have fun in Portland tomorrow.
Thanks, man, I will.
It's been great catching up with you, man.
Hey, is that bread?
Yeah, why?
I thought you just said you found out you were gluten intolerant.
Well, I am, but I always wear a mask when I eat it, so. Not really a big deal.
Well, it's been real, bro. I'll give you a shout when I get back.
Oh, I'm not really doing the hands thing, just with everything that's.
Right, totally understandable. See you soon, man. Oh, what is that?
You are canceled.
Oh, God. JP Sears is so funny. So be sure to subscribe to his YouTube channel. He's got some great stuff out there. Great stuff out there. All right. So let's look at the asset matrix, folks. And by the way, speaking of assets, if you want to learn more about estate planning, asset protection, and reducing your tax liability, check out our webinar on that. Many of you have. It's by far our most popular webinar. Everybody seems to just really love that. It's jasonhartman.com/protect. You will learn a lot. Check that out. We have had just rave reviews of that webinar. Everybody seems to really, really, really love it. Okay, so I will put that scrolling across the bottom. Okay, so let's talk about the asset matrix. Now, when we consider this, now this is again what I presented many years ago, and we need to consider how our different assets that we may or may not have in our portfolio act in different economic scenarios. So the three main economic maladies or scenarios are inflation, deflation, and stagflation. Okay. Now, there could be stagflation or just stagnation. Okay. The difference being in those two, slightly different flavors, obviously, is you could have an economy that's just stagnant where you don't have inflation. But you could have stagflation where you have a stagnant economy, meaning high unemployment and inflation at the same time. And that one is really bad news. You don't want that one. Okay. That's what we had during the awful Jimmy Carter era, right? Jimmy Carter, probably a good man, but he was not a good president. Okay. I think everybody could agree with that because Carter just didn't know how to lead. He was just not good at running the economy. He wasn't good at being president. Okay. And but I think he was an honest guy, at least more honest than, well, Slick Willie Bill Clinton, that's for sure. And I don't know, Obama, I won't even comment. But anyway, here is the matrix and how your investments perform versus inflation. So let's go over them. So, which investments are best in an inflationary environment? And remember, inflationary is the most common environment we have to deal with. Okay, that is the most likely scenario. It's the most common scenario. And why is that? Well, for a few reasons, of many reasons, but a few of them are simply that politicians like to spend money. Okay, why do they like to spend money? Because when they spend, they are essentially buying votes. They dole out the goodies to the electorate and they get to stay in power. They get favorable reviews. People like them when they're giving out the money. And the consequence of their largesse comes later, right? That consequence comes in terms of inflation, but it takes a while for it to play out. So it's a great deal for politicians because they can give out the goodies today, and then after they're long gone and out of office, then the negative effects occur, right? So they get to be the hero on their watch and leave the problem for somebody else. Okay, so that's the business plan of governments. It's the business plan of central banks. That plan is inflationary. And what I always say is we need to align our interest with the two most powerful forces the human race has ever known: governments and central banks, the most powerful forces outside of God the human race has ever known. And they have standing armies. They have the power of the law on their side. They have the ability to inflict violence through their police forces or externally through their militaries. So that's the way it is. So we're not going to fix this. We're not going to change it. We want to align our interest with theirs. So the best performing assets in an inflationary environment are gold, a mortgage. Now, most of you are thinking, Jason, you can't say that. A mortgage is not an asset. A mortgage is a liability, stupid. Yeah, I know. Haven't you ever looked at a balance sheet? Assets are the things you own, and the liabilities are the debts you have against them. And a mortgage is debt. So how can it be an asset? Au contraire, mortgage is a great asset as long as it's a low interest rate mortgage and it is attached to what I call packaged commodities in the form of income property. And that mortgage today is a negative interest rate mortgage. It is long term investment grade debt. So it is an asset. And I want you to really think about this for a moment. How old will you be in 30 years? How old will you be in 30 years? How much will happen in the next 30 years 3 decades from now, how much different will the world be? What will happen? How much inflation will there be in the next 3 decades? With the highest debt levels we've ever had, with the highest level of unfunded mandates and unfunded entitlements coming at us that we've ever had in the history of the country. How much inflation will there be? What do I mean? Well, I mean, think about it. We've got a certain amount of debt today that we owe as a nation. We've got a certain amount of debt today that corporations owe, and a certain amount of debt today that people owe, personal debt, household debt. And in addition to all of those types of debts, there's another thing that is not considered a debt, but it is a debt in essence, and that is unfunded obligations, mandates, entitlements, welfare programs that the government has promised that it simply can't afford to pay. Now, I've interviewed the economist Lawrence Kutlikoff on my podcast several times, and he has probably done the most research into this topic in terms of how high are those unfunded mandates. And of course, you really have to estimate, and you also have to consider over what time period. Is it over the next 10 years, the next 15 years? These vary a little bit. Some say it's $60 trillion. That's with a T, 60 trillion. So to give you a reference point of the size of that, the global economy in terms of the entire planet, how much does the entire human race produce in terms of economic value every year? Well, that number is somewhere in the ballpark of $100 trillion. Okay, those are with a T, trillion. So this low number of the unfunded mandates and the unfunded entitlements is about $60 trillion. Okay, so there's your reference point. What is the GDP of just the United States? Not the entire world, but just the United States. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 trillion. All right, so there you go. So there's a couple of reference points. So that's the low number, is $60 trillion in unfunded mandates. But the high number is about $220 trillion, $220 trillion with a T of unfunded mandates. So remember, that is in addition to the deficit. It is in addition to the current debt. These are things we have to pay for that are coming at us in the next 10 to 15 years. All right? So just stick that in your pipe and smoke it, okay? As the old saying goes. And just think about how the inflationary pressures, how significant they will be. All right. So the best performing assets in an inflationary environment are in the green: gold, mortgage, and the value of real estate. What do I mean, the value of real estate? Well, the value of real estate has always been considered a great hedge against inflation because it goes up usually better than the rate of inflation. Okay. So, typically you'll see that year in and year out over the course of decades, real estate will appreciate it somewhere around 6%, give or take. And usually over the course of decades, they'll say, it of course depends on the time period. I get it. And with real estate, it depends on the market, linear, cyclical, and hybrid. It's all, you can dice this up a zillion ways. But that's just a general round number. And of course, we saw last year, according to National Association of Realtors, that the price was up 12%, not 6%. It was double the normal rate, right? 12%. And so what was I saying about that? So inflation will be somewhere, in the neighborhood of 3%, probably, right? That's the official number. Of course, that's a lie. It's understated. It's manipulated, usually through the three major ways that the inflation index, the most commonly used being the CPI, or the Consumer Price Index. And remember, there are several CPIs. The most commonly used one is called CPIU, meaning Consumer Price Index -U for urban, the urban index, right? But there are others. So just like there are many FICO scoring models, people don't know this, but they say, "What's your FICO score?" Okay, and I'm just giving you a comparison here. Well, it depends on which FICO scoring model you're talking about. Isn't it interesting? You went to that one of those free credit report sites, or you went to your one of the three credit bureaus and you got your FICO score, and they said, "Hey, your FICO score is 720." But then you went to go buy a new car or apply for a loan on a house, and your FICO score was different. Well, it's because there are different scoring models. There's FICO 5 and FICO 8 and FICO 3. Okay, so it depends which model, and different models are used by different types of lenders. Okay, so there are different consumer price indexes. And then there's the core rate of inflation, meaning that they take the consumer price index, but they say that two items in the consumer price index are just too volatile. So we're going to exclude those from the consumer price index. And we're not going to count them because they fluctuate too much and they throw the index off. And it's hard to get a reading when things are moving around too fast. Okay. So, what are those two things? Do you know what they are? Put them in the comments below. Put them in the comments below, and I'll give you a drum roll. The dog really perks up when she hears that one, by the way. Don't you? Yeah, she's laying over there. Lazy dog. So, what are the two components that are commonly excluded from the consumer price index to get what they call the core rate? The core rate. Okay, let's see. Anybody got it? Come on, folks. Type it in. Type it in. Or they also call this core inflation. Okay, what are those two things excluded? Right? Let's see if anybody got it here. Come on, folks. Tell me what they are. Tell me what they are. Wow, there's a lot of comments here. Keep them coming, folks. We love all these comments. And glad you liked the funny video. Okay, nobody's got it there yet. I know you guys are listening on Facebook, there's a whole bunch of Facebook channels we're on, and then YouTube as well. So I don't see the answer here yet. Okay. Oh, yes, I do see it. Yes, a couple people got it. All right. Good job. So we've got Karen Thompson, who is correct. Congratulations, Karen. And we've got Island Breeze, who is also correct. And both of you said food and energy, or energy and food. You said it differently. Those are the two volatile things that are excluded from core inflation or core rate. So those are too volatile, so we can't count them. But I ask you, dear viewers and listeners, how many of you can survive without food and energy? The answer is nobody. Everybody needs food and energy, right? So those costs are excluded from the core inflation rate. All right. So the best performers: gold, the traditional hedge against inflation for the gold bugs, the real estate mortgage. Why is that? Because of inflation induced debt destruction, which I've been teaching you for many years. That's my trademark term: inflation induced debt destruction, or IIDD for short. Inflation induced debt destruction, because you pay your mortgage back in ever cheaper dollars in an inflationary environment. This is why this is the hidden wealth creator for income property investors. And if you want to know more about it, go to jasonhartman.com and use the search bar and just type in inflation induced debt destruction, and you can find all of my very detailed, very complete podcast episodes on that topic on the Creating Wealth podcast. Okay. Now, which assets do okay in an inflationary environment? Remember, we have two other maladies to talk about still, folks. This is just one of the three. This is just inflation. So, your income at your job, okay, your job, it's an acronym for just over broke. Just over broke, because it means they pay you just enough so you won't quit, and and not enough to ever become rich, right? That's why you got to invest. You got to do something of your own initiative, right? But your job income is hopefully, although it hasn't been, at least in the last few decades, it's hopefully indexed to inflation. And hopefully you are getting cost of living increases at your day job. Also, your rental income from your properties will increase. Hopefully, you're raising your rents every single year. If you're a good landlord, you got to always raise your rents, and you'll get increases that will keep pace with inflation. So these are neutral things, right? And then hopefully your stocks go up in value if you own stock. Wall Street is the modern version of organized crime, as I always say. But if you own stocks, hopefully those stocks appreciate at least at the rate of inflation. Okay. Now, and by the way stock prices perform, that is a scam and a lie for another episode. But here's what I want to just tell you very briefly about it. Wall Street has no shortage of tricks up their sleeve to mislead investors. And here is just one of many, I'm going to tell you now. So, when you're looking at the performance of various investment funds, someone will say, well, we have our, you know, S&P sectors fund or whatever they call it. They've got all these creative names for these stock funds, right? And if you invested in our fund over the past 10 years, you would have earned 8% or 10% or 9% or whatever it is, right? On average, year in and year out. But you know what they didn't tell you? Here's what they didn't tell you. Here's why that is misleading and it is a fraud. It's because what these companies do is they engage in the practice of pulling the wool over your eyes or putting their hands over your ears because you can't hear the dogs that don't bark, as I always say. Well, which dogs aren't barking in those statistics of the performance of these funds, right? Here are the dogs that aren't barking. What they do is they take the poorly performing funds and they close them. Yep, that's what they do. So they close their poorly performing funds. And then when they tell you those averages, they're only talking about the averages of the funds they didn't close, which have better performance. What a scam-o-rama scam. That's a Wall Street scam here. Actually, this is a better sound effect for that. This is what happens to your money when you invest with those crooks. Hey, the dog liked that. That was a bomb dropping. See, I got all my sound effects right here. So, anyway, that's the medium performance categories. But the worst performers are cash because cash depreciates in an inflationary environment. Okay. Bonds. Bonds are the other side of a loan, right? So, up here, we're saying that your mortgage is a really good asset in an inflationary environment because you pay the loan back, the mortgage back, in cheaper dollars. And the bond, in fact, there are mortgage bonds that you could invest in, right? The bond is being the lender, essentially, right? A bond is just the flip side of a loan. So, as a bond, you get paid back in cheaper dollars. And that bond, if it has a fixed interest rate, which it probably does, right? Then it is depreciating in an inflationary environment. Also, your pension income, if you have like a fixed income in your pension that you've been promised, right? Like a defined benefit program, which by the way, those are long gone because they put the auto companies and the airlines into a lot of trouble, right? Those defined benefit programs. And so that pension income performs very poorly against inflation. Also, taxes perform very poorly against inflation. Well, what do I mean by that? Taxes. So, the IRS, there are many examples I've shared on my podcast about this over the years, how the IRS does not know how to calculate inflation. And that hurts most taxpayers, okay? But some people really benefit from that because they outsmart the IRS. They realize, okay, the IRS doesn't know how to handle inflation in my investments, uh, and and you can use that to your benefit, okay? But most people get hurt by the way the IRS calculates inflation. Hey, by the way, I got to ask you a favor. Can you do me a favor? Smash the like button. Okay. Like this video, whether it be on Facebook or on YouTube, just click the like button right now because I'm not going on until you do it. Yep. I'm going to give you a drum roll to hit the like button. The dog just doesn't know what to do with that. Okay. So you've all hit the like button, right? Can't go on until you do. I'm waiting, waiting. Okay, you've all hit the like button, right? Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that favor. So, this is the asset protection, estate planning, and tax reduction webinar, jasonhartman.com/protect. And let's talk about economic malady number 2, deflation. Deflation. Now, deflation means prices are dropping. And most people would say, well, isn't that good news? I like it when prices go down. I like that deflationary environment as a consumer. Now, this is actually the scariest economic malady for the powers that be. They do not like deflation. The government doesn't like deflation. Why don't they like deflation? Well, the government owes a lot of money to people. And deflation is the opposite of my trademark idea of inflation induced debt destruction, right? So, in a deflationary environment, debt actually gets more expensive to repay. It does. So, which assets perform well in a deflationary environment? Cash performs well. Why is that? Because the cash in your savings account or in your wallet goes up in value. It buys more. As prices go down, your cash becomes more valuable than it used to be. Now, this is a very rare malady. Deflation is not common. Inflation is much more common than deflation. But bonds, remember, bonds are the flip side of a mortgage. So those bonds actually perform really well in a deflationary environment because you're getting paid back in more valuable dollars rather than cheaper dollars. So being a bondholder in a deflationary environment is good news. Also, remember that pension income that was devastated by deflation or by inflation? It actually improves and your standard of living goes up if you have a fixed amount of pension income because it buys more. It's more valuable to you. And taxes, and it depends on the type of tax. So this one's kind of complicated. And again, I've just got to refer you to my podcast, The Creating Wealth Show, for those episodes where we talk about how the IRS doesn't really calculate for inflation or deflation properly. Sometimes it benefits you, mostly it doesn't, okay? Because most people aren't doing their investments right. And remember, taxes are not insignificant, folks. Taxes are hugely significant because they are the single largest expense any of us have in our life, taxes, right? So, okay. So, which assets are kind of in between, medium in this deflationary environment? The income at your job, medium. Rental income, medium. Stocks, medium performance. Now, which assets perform poorly? Well, gold, your mortgage, but wait, there's more. With a mortgage, it's just not quite that simple. Why is that? Let me see here. Do I have a good sound effect for this one? Let's see what this one is. Oh, that's bad. I don't like that one. That's like broken glass. Bad. We won't use that again, folks. So your mortgage is kind of interesting because even though the debt on the mortgage in a deflationary environment gets more expensive to repay, because remember, you're paying the debt back in a more burdensome fashion. But then you go to your lender and you say, hey, this is a burden to me. I can't do it. I can't do it, lender. So help me out. And the lender says, okay, well, I'm going to give you a loan modification. And they almost always do, especially if you cut off the oxygen and you withhold a payment or two. They'll usually run to give you a loan modification. In fact, as the Great Recession was just beginning, I remember I modified a whole bunch of my loans. I did strategic defaults on other ones, and millions of other people did this. About 12 million people, as a matter of fact. So it was a common occurrence back then. And I remember one of my lenders, a bank that I had done a lot of business with. I did a lot of business with them. I still do a lot of business with them, as a matter of fact. And I've got a whole bunch of money deposited with their nice institution. They sent a letter to everybody, all of their mortgage borrowers, and it was on blue paper, so it was different. And I got this blue letter, I'll call it, and the letter said, and I was not in default on any of my mortgages to them. They had a lot of my mortgages. I was paying them all. I was paying them on time, just as agreed. And they sent me this blue letter and they sent it to all their other borrowers, I guess. I asked them and they said they sent it to all the others, all the borrowers. And it said, hey, we know times are tough right now. And if you need a loan modification, if you need help paying your mortgage, just call us. And they had an 800 number there. And so I called them up and I said, hey, sure, you can help me if you want. And they just voluntarily reduced the interest rate on all my mortgages, and they reduced the payments, and they said like the loans. I think they reduced them by the interest rates by like 50% for 2 or 3 years. 50. They cut the interest rate in half, I believe. I can't remember exactly, but I talked about it on my podcast at the time, and all the episodes are up there, so you can go back and find the old episodes that I did during the Great Recession. 2008, 2007, 2008, 2009, and listen to them, and you can hear the whole story back then. So that mortgage really could actually move up from the low performance category to the medium or even the high performance category during a deflationary environment. Now, real estate value would go down in a deflationary environment, so that would perform poorly. But when you have the balance of that multidimensional asset class of income property, right, of your rents doing okay, your mortgage possibly performing really well if you get a loan modification, uh, your value might not be a big deal because you offset all these things with each other. And that's why I love income property, because it's a multi-dimensional asset class. Okay. Now, well, before we look at one more, let me invite you to our webinar that we have today. Today is the day. This is our Charlotte property webinar. This is brand new construction in Charlotte, North Carolina. Fantastic market. The number 2, and hey, maybe it'll become the number 1 banking capital of the United States as people leave New York. Charlotte's always been the number 2 banking capital of the US. It might, as this mass migration flows out of New York, it might become number 1. So we've got a great webinar on that today. We ran that on Thursday as well, but it's also today. And it's at 3 o'clock Eastern today. And then it's also this evening at 8 o'clock Eastern, or, convert that to Pacific time if you want. So that's just go register for that. Registration is required in advance, and it'll send you the link, jasonhartman.com/Charlotte. This is a great market. And we have probably sold out of our first batch of inventory of these new construction homes in Charlotte. So check that out, jasonhartman.com/Charlotte, and you can join us for that later today. Okay, how about taxes? Okay, now, how do your investments or your assets perform vis-a-vis taxation, right? Remember, This is nothing to sneeze at. You know what? We need a sound effect of a sneeze. Is this one? Oh, no, that's disgusting. That's a burp. There's all these sound effects I haven't used on this machine. Oh, here's one. That's a spring. And here's another one, musical notes. I like that one. We're using that one again. Taxes are nothing to sneeze at because taxes are the single largest expense any of us have in our life. So this is a big deal. It's a big deal. So what performs the best vis-a-vis taxes? Your mortgage on your income properties and the value of real estate perform really well vis-a-vis taxes. What performs in a medium fashion? Cash and rental income are medium, right in the middle, vis-a-vis taxes. And what has the worst performance in terms of taxation? The income from your job is the highest taxed income. That's what we look at. Most of our clients earn good money. We have a lot of tech clients, a lot of clients who are making great money from their day job, but they come to us because they realize that they have got to do something to reduce their tax liability. And so we help them build a nationwide portfolio of income properties. And we help them invest in all these great linear and hybrid markets around the US and reduce their tax liability. Because that job income is the highest taxed thing there is. It's terrible. It's really a terrible deal. All right. Bonds perform very poorly vis-a-vis taxes. Pension income also very bad. Gold is a collectible. So when you sell it, you pay tax at a collectible tax rate, which sucks. It's terrible. Okay. By the way, I have to make the standard disclaimer. I am not a tax or legal advisor. The law and taxes are very complicated areas. Of course, there are thousands of pages, well, maybe millions of pages of legal code, and then thousands and thousands of pages, tens of thousands of pages of tax code. So seek advice from the appropriate professional. Okay, I'm just giving you concepts here. You got to go check with the professionals on this stuff. I am not a tax or legal professional. I'm a hack. Okay, so stocks, very poor in terms of taxes. Remember, every time you sell your stock or get dividend from a stock, you pay taxes. Now, with income property, you can reinvest under the 1031 tax deferred exchange if Joe Biden doesn't take it away. But hopefully, Joe Biden will not be elected president. No matter what the Associated Press, who seems to have elected him, says. Yeah, the media doesn't elect the president, thankfully. Yeah, so these are bad in terms of taxation, right? So that, folks, is the asset matrix in short. I have much longer information, more detailed information, more in-depth information about this on the podcast. So go to jasonhartman.com and you can search using our search engine there all of the podcast episodes on this topic. And just type in asset matrix, you'll find them. You can get all the detail. Okay. All right. So that is it in terms of the asset matrix. So let me just go back here. Okay. And let's get to some of your questions and comments because there are a zillion of them and I've not caught up on them. Okay. So let's go back here. Where were we, folks? Oh, a lot to cover. Okay. Okay, Wookiee World. There are only three real Star Wars movies. Okay, from the 70s. The rest are junk. Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm thinking that's true because I tried to watch the last one, or I don't know, one of them, and it was just boring. I just turned it off. Okay, so Gosling's talking to Sarah here. Yes, get some options for your Ohio refinances. Can actually push back on the property manager. Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. Of course you can push back. We help you push back and get the best deal you should. Okay. Okay. Michael says, hi, Jason, getting a late start to the feed. Las Vegas has very little inventory and homes around 800 to $1.2 million, getting under contract in just a few days. Yeah, that's all that those California people are leaving the state of California. They're moving to Vegas and other places, of course. But the market is very, very hot in all these suburban markets. I agree. Remember something, folks, as I've said, I lived in Las Vegas for a year and a half, and Las Vegas is really three markets. It's the Strip, that's the market everybody thinks of, but that's not Las Vegas. It's the suburbs, and then it's the slums. Okay. Las Vegas really divided into three markets: the Strip, the suburbs, and the slums, SSS. All right. There's a lot of really bad, ratty areas in Las Vegas. There are some nice suburban areas in Las Vegas. And then there's the Strip, which is what everybody thinks of, which is not really what Las Vegas is. So it depends where. Okay. Michael says, scary to see that happening. However, many out of state buyers, yeah, California especially. Okay. Sounds like Festus. Did you mean Festivus? I don't know what that means, but okay. More coffee. Okay, Ian. Yeah, I did. I drank all my coffee. It's all gone. No more coffee left. That's cup number 3. What did you put in your coffee? I just put some creamer in there and a little bit of stevia or sugar in the raw. That's how I drink my coffee. And I'm weaning down. I put less and less of that stuff in every time because you just got to wean yourself away from sugar, even stevia, which is probably the best sugar substitute because it's a root, it's natural. But even that can mess up your blood sugar levels and your insulin response. So, I put a small amount. Okay, Muthaya, who's always with us and talking to us and involved and buying lots of properties. Inflection of your voice keeps everybody one listening. Okay, so I'll vary my voice. Vocal variety. Yes, vocal variety. All right. So here we go. Okay, Jason, how many ounces of silver or gold will I need to pay my, I think, $300,000 mortgage in 2 years' time? Well, gold is at about $2,000 an ounce, so you'd need 150 ounces, right? But are you talking about the appreciation rate uh, of of gold or silver? I'm not exactly sure what the question means, but look at gold and silver. And by the way, on our chart, we don't have cryptocurrencies. Okay, I should have mentioned that. Oh, yes, I should have mentioned that. The commonly held thought is that your cryptocurrency would do really well in an inflationary environment, especially Bitcoin. And that has proven to be pretty true. It's got a very short history, though, folks. So a lot could change. Short history, not a lot to go off of there. Okay, with cryptocurrencies, but that is one that we did not mention. By the way, I just wanted to point that out. Okay, could we consider low interest rates a negative bubble waiting to pop with eventual rate increases? Absolutely, and I think we could definitely consider that. That is a bubble that has to pop. The interest rates are artificially low. They cannot stay this low. It must pop. And so in that case, with interest rates, it'll be the opposite, right? The old saying is, what goes up must come down, right? That's the old saying. And in this case, what is down must come up, or what goes down must come up. And that is interest rates. You are absolutely right. Absolutely right, because they are fake. It's like fake news. We have fake rates. They're calling it a pause now instead of a lockdown. Yeah, interesting. Folks, if you have not read the book 1984 by George Orwell or seen any of the movie renditions, there are many of them out there by George Orwell, you got to. Now, here's what you have to do today. Today, once we're finished with the live stream, you've got to register for our Charlotte property webinar, okay? And that's jasonhartman.com/Charlotte. And join us for that today and check out our properties in Charlotte. And by the way, we have some actual lessons, some economic content in there as well, not just properties. I'm going to be teaching you something I try to do that at all of our property webinars. Actually, at the beginning of it, actually share some techniques, some strategies. And Charlotte, we have that. So join us for that today, jasonhartman.com/Charlotte. But the other thing you've got to do today is you've got to get a hold of the book 1984 by George Orwell, and or watch one of the movies about 1984, and notice how they use language and they change language. They change the meaning of words to confuse people. And yeah, a pause instead of a lockdown. Love his videos. Well, thank you, Sarah. Sarah's one of our team members. And okay. Z Education had fun video today. Okay, Bill, good. Glad you liked it. Okay, what's the URL to that video? Oh, to the JP Sears video? I do not know. But just go and subscribe to JP Sears YouTube channel, because he's just got some great content, some funny stuff. You definitely want to follow him. He's great. I don't know if that's me or JP Sears or who you're talking about, but hey, glad you like it. Okay, so I really appreciate that video. Really funny. Yeah, it is. He's just doing a great job, JP Sears, of making fun of these leftist idiots. I mean, they're just so they're just I don't know what to say. They're out of their mind. Okay, so question: what about all the interest we pay on that mortgage we would have to pay for that house? Curious what your opinion. Juan, okay, Juan asks about the interest you pay. Look at the interest is below the rate of real inflation. So you're getting paid to borrow the money. And with income properties, we don't pay the interest rate. We don't even pay the principal. Our tenants pay it. We outsource our debt to our tenants to pay the mortgage. They have to pay the mortgage. That's the great thing. Income property is a multidimensional asset class. It's the ultimate arbitrage, because what we do is we don't pay our debts. We tell our tenants to pay our debts. And then we get the benefit of them paying the debts. And we also tell them, in addition to paying the debt for us, we tell them they have to pay us a little extra every month. We call that positive cash flow. And on a typical property through our network, that positive cash flow could be from anywhere from $100 to $300 per month after the mortgage is paid. So it's a great deal, Juan. Great question. But again, we're getting paid to borrow the money because we have negative interest rates and because we're outsourcing the obligation of paying that debt to the tenant. So good question. Okay, Sarah, yep. Oh, hey, Sarah said the same thing. She answered your question for me. All right. What does Ron say? Ron says, question: do you think the US GDP is currently $20 trillion? I would think it's lower. Oh, well, currently meaning this year. Yeah, that's a good point, because Ron, it's definitely down due to the pause. They have a thing they talk about. With men, they talk about andropause. With women, they have menopause. Well, I'm going to invent a new word today, folks. Here is a new word right now. Right now, I'm inventing it. You ready for this new word? We're going to call this econopause. You heard it here first, folks. I don't think anyone thought of that but me. Econopause. Yeah, that's what happens when they do shutdowns, lockdowns, and all these ridiculous quarantines. They're absolutely absurd. This is a dictator's dream right now, folks. It really is. So we'll see what the GDP turns out to be this year. Okay, the biggest fear I would property taxes going through the roof. Pardon the pun. Yeah, well, through the roof. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be upward pressure on property taxes especially in the poorly run left-wing Democrat-controlled disaster zones. There will be a problem with that. But again, property taxes are largely negotiable, and here's what I mean by that. It's just like a mortgage. Okay, your tax collector, your local government, does not want you to default on those taxes. So again, there are all kinds of pressure groups from citizen groups that go up against and fight for those lower taxes or them not to increase too much. But certainly in California and all the other left-wing controlled areas around the country, I would be very concerned about property taxes. Absolutely. Okay, energy and food. Yes, Karen got that right. Island Breeze got it right. Okay. But Jason, in an environment of increasing unemployment, how do you increase rent? Oh, yeah. Well, that's a good question. Beverly, I'm glad you asked that question. So here's the deal, folks. You got to understand something, that there is a socioeconomic ladder, meaning if you look at it like a ladder metaphor, right? And your tenants are somewhere on that ladder. So, say, for example, right now, they are paying you $1,500 a month. And for $1,500 a month, they get a 1,500 square foot single family home that you purchased at jasonhartman.com/properties. You purchased that on our platform, hopefully. And they've got a 1,500 square foot house in a given neighborhood and a given age house, given condition for $1,500 per month. So, say for example, they have higher unemployment or they're not getting any pay increases, and you need to raise your rent. So it comes from somewhere. Either they need to give up the private school they're paying for, or they need to give up the expensive car, or they need to give up your house. And they need to move from a 1,500 square foot house to a 1,200 square foot house. In other words, I'm using square footage as a metaphor, but they need to maybe move down the socioeconomic ladder to a lesser house. It might be a lesser neighborhood, an inferior school district, less square footage. It might be an older house instead of a newer house. It might be a less upgraded house, whatever. It might be a house in a cheaper city versus a more expensive city, right? There's all kinds of things. But they are just going to move, and you're going to replace them with another tenant who also may well be moving down the socioeconomic ladder. So maybe they were in a 2,000 square foot house and maybe they owned it. And now they can't even afford to be a homeowner anymore. And they've cycled into the renter market because of bad economic times. So now they come from their 2,000 square foot house in a better neighborhood down to your 1,500 square foot house in a not as good neighborhood as they lived in before. Okay, so the great thing about our strategy is you catch people moving up or down the socioeconomic ladder because we've got the properties that are positioned at the right places on that ladder to catch those tenants moving either way. Okay, more on that on my Creating Wealth podcast, or at jasonhartman.com, and that's even addressed, by the way, on our Charlotte webinar today, jasonhartman.com/Charlotte, where we talked about that issue. Okay. So, but you still raise your rent. The rent still goes up. Okay. And maybe your tenant can't stay and they can't afford it anymore. Maybe they take on a roommate. I mean, lots of people now are couples, okay, living with a roommate, like a single person living with a couple. Okay. That happens. So, they have to cut expenses or increase income somewhere. Okay. All right. Will the American taxpayer bail out the California pension system? I hope not, but it's possible. Now, see that if Joe Biden is elected president, the likelihood of that is higher. If Trump is reelected president, then the likelihood of that is lower. California is a disaster. It's a bad investment for a government bailout. So I would say the best thing to do is be like a strict but prudent parent, and the federal government being the parent in that metaphor, saying to their wanton spending children, their spendthrift children, that would be California, say, tough it out, figure out your own finances, and get your act together. I'm not going to pay for all your stupid social programs. I mean, these leftist idiots in California, they're just trying to ruin the state. And look at how hypocritical they are. Look at Gavin Newsom, right? Gavin Newsom out at his dinner at French Laundry. I've always wanted to go to that, ultra uber expensive exclusive restaurant, French Laundry. And, he's having dinner with a couple of lobbyists at the table. Nobody's wearing a mask. It's indoors. All the gatherings he's prohibited and made illegal. Of course, he being in the elite class, is exempt from all the rules, right? That's the way it always works with these dictatorial tyrants. Okay, okay, we got that one. Okay. Thank you, Ian, for the like. All the rest of you, be sure to like this video right now. Click the like button. Click it. Come on, click the like button right away. All right. I know you're watching and I know you're liking it. So you got to tell the world you like it, or I'm not going to keep doing it anymore, folks. Hey, I got other stuff to do on a Sunday, folks. So give me some likes, All right. Appreciate those likes. So Lacey Hunt says we'll have deflation followed by inflation, possibly hyperinflation. Jeff Booth says high tech contributes to the deflation. I agree. I've talked about that a lot, that technology is the deflationary force and bad fiscal and monetary policy is the inflationary force. So look at folks, look at it this way. You've heard me talk about this for years. Okay. On one side of the equation, we've got the forces that create inflation. And those forces are bad monetary policy. That comes from the Federal Reserve, right? Bad fiscal policy. That comes from the government, okay? Too much spending, too much debt. These are inflationary forces. On the other side of that, we've got technology. Technology is a deflationary force. Because it makes things faster, better, and cheaper, right? That's what technology does. So the question is, of these two forces, which one will win? Will it be, bad fiscal and monetary policy, or will it be technology? Which one will win the inflation deflation debate? And I have analyzed that extensively on the Creating Wealth podcast. So listen in, a lot more on that. We don't have time to cover today. Okay, so. And Spring Pong, Spring Pong, that's a good name, says food and energy. Yes, you are right about that. Okay, how badly did strategic defaults affect your credit score and how quickly did it recover? That's a complicated question, but here's the thing, Rob, that's interesting about that. As millions and millions of people did strategic defaults, okay, what they realized is that there wasn't any reason for a couple of years to worry much about credit because they tightened up the borrowing so much that there was no money to borrow anyway. If your credit score was the highest possible score of 850, which it should never be, by the way, your credit score should always be hovering in the 700s, 720-ish, give or take, okay? Because that is enough. If your credit score is too high, it means you're not using your credit enough. You're not borrowing enough money. And you want to have a lot of mortgages on your credit because those mortgages are assets. Okay. Yeah, it's a complicated question to ask. And you can certainly hire lots of companies out there to help you play the credit game, learn about the credit game, credit capacity utilization, history, all these things, inquiries, all these things that affect your credit report. And I've done many, many podcasts. I've interviewed many, many experts on that topic over the years. So more on the podcast. But it, depends on the lender, depends on the FICO scoring model, and it depends on the 3 credit bureaus. They all report different things. So your score, remember different FICO scoring models and different credit bureaus, right? This is complex stuff. There's a lot here. If you check your TransUnion credit report versus your Equifax versus your Experian report, they will have different scores on them. So, it's a long topic. There's a lot to it. Okay. But again, not a big deal. And plus, I was very cash rich at that time. So I'd rather keep the cash than the credit report, right? Your credit report is less valuable in an environment, as it was way back then, where there just wasn't much lending going on. Okay, so I think those were very good decisions, and they got me some great loan modifications. I mean, I got some awesome loan modifications, no question about it. Okay, so but Jason, with all the level of debt and increased money printing, does it really matter who sits in the White House? It does a little bit. But that is a good point. I mean, look at Republicans are the new Democrats. Republicans are spenders. Democrats are just worse. All right. Either side is it's one flavor of the same thing. They're not that much different anymore. Trump and Biden are very different, obviously, but they're both spenders. Okay, they're both spenders. Oh God, Dave Ramsey. Ay 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 ay. Dave Ramsey. What does he say? Dave Ramsey says, buy investment property with cash, no financing. Isn't there real value in owning investment property? Just curious on your take. Okay, John, great question. Dave Ramsey is just wrong, wrong, wrong. Dave Ramsey is wrong. Okay. He is coming from a perspective, and I have studied him well. I've had his number two guy on my podcast. I did not get Dave on my podcast. And his number two guy, I think was, at least at the time, his CEO of his company. I can't remember, but it's on my podcast. Okay. Um, he said that Dave was really turned off on borrowing, even on mortgages, because in the 70s, he got himself into trouble and he had loans called. That's not the same type of mortgage you're getting today. What Dave did is he gambled. He did a stupid thing and he gambled on a bunch of houses that he bought, and he bought them with short term loans, essentially what we would call hard money loans today. And the bank would not give him an extension. And so all those loans were due and he lost the properties. So he probably had a ton of foreclosures on his record and all that kind of stuff. Um, Dave Ramsey is good for the market he serves. Dave Ramsey is elementary school and kindergarten. And what I mean by that is this: for the market he serves, he really does have a great message. He says, get out of debt, pay off your credit cards, don't go on expensive vacations, not that you could anymore anyway nowadays. Don't buy a motorhome, don't buy an expensive car, stop wasting your money on that stupid consumer stuff, on the appearances of wealth. Start to build real wealth and save money. And for that group of those people who have been reckless and they've been, stupid consumers, they need to get their act together. Dave Ramsey is great for them. I applaud Dave Ramsey. I love what he's doing. The problem is, once you don't have credit card debt, and once you don't have consumer debt, and once you have your act together, you need to graduate from Dave Ramsey to Jason Hartman. Okay. Dave Ramsey is talking to a different audience. So once you've got your act together, graduate from Dave Ramsey. Okay? It's just not enough. He doesn't teach investing. Okay? He teaches stop wasting your money on expensive cars that you can't afford. Okay? That's the point of Dave Ramsey. Okay. Klaus Schwab says you'll own nothing by 2030 and you'll be happy. Any comments? I think that is super scary. Super scary. Let's drop the bomb. The dog likes the bomb. That is super scary. The Great Reset. I'm going to do a whole podcast episode where I talk about the Great Reset. Maybe we'll do it on a live stream too. Really scary. Klaus Schwab is an evil dictator. Okay. Okay. Assuming a Biden presidency, do you think foreign investors will start buying U.S. real estate? And when they do you think they'll flee to higher price places? Well, I think the tendency will always be to go to the lower price markets in Southeast U.S., like Charlotte, North Carolina. Webinar today, jasonhartman.com/Charlotte. Or Alabama. We've got a webinar replay on that one, jasonhartman.com/Sweet Home, like Sweet Home, Alabama. And yes, I think so. But I don't think I'm not sure what you're getting at with Biden and foreign investors. Trump has not discouraged foreign investors. Okay. He's discouraged some foreign immigration, and I believe rightfully so, by the way. But that's a different argument for a different day. But I don't know that foreign investment will change dramatically under Biden. But I think the continuation to these more affordable markets, like the ones you'll find at jasonhartman.com/properties, will definitely increase, and it's booming now. I mean, folks, business is booming right now, so that's what's going on. Okay. So, question: if you have real estate in a cyclical market during inflationary times, when do you sell to capitalize? Ron, that is a great question, but it is a market timing question and it's a complex question which deserves more time than I have today. So I'm going to let that one go and say, listen to the podcast, but you definitely can make money trying to time the market. The problem is you could be wrong and you could time it wrong and get in trouble. And Sarah's answering that question, which is one of the ways I've answered it before. So there's her answer for you. And I think that's a good answer. There's more to it than she can say in a little text message here on the thread, but that's a good point she's bringing up. So 0.7 rent to value ratio. I've talked about that before, and Sarah's a great student and one of our great team members. So there you go. And she's talking about what rent to value ratio is. Okay, so gotta go. Hey, thanks for coming, Bill. Thanks for joining us. Do you help with VA home loans? No, we don't, because VA is owner occupied. But if you are a vet, and by the way, thank you for your service, I recommend getting a VA loan and get that for your personal residence and go on from there to build your investment portfolio. And you experienced Jason, and my apology if you already get answered. C rates going lower. Okay, I'm not sure. I think you were answering someone else's question there. Okay. All right. So, folks, I got to wrap it up because number one, I'm getting tired of talking. I can only ramble so long. And it is 1:45 here on the East Coast, and it's time for me to eat lunch and walk the dog. So, thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll see you on the webinar in a couple of hours here, or this evening in a few hours, in several hours. jasonhartman.com/Charlotte for that one. We'll look forward to seeing you there. And until then, happy investing. Of course, we'll also be back with podcast all 5 days this week. Even on Thanksgiving Day, we will have a podcast episode that you can hopefully be thankful for. Anyway, happy Thanksgiving, everyone in the US. And until next time, happy investing to all of you. And thanks for joining me today.